Ivan. So this is the guest speaker series, 16 March, with the Veterans and Military Families Caucus. And it is wonderful to have so many people on board joining us this evening. We're going to kick off. We've got two wonderful things to talk about. So it's Women's History Month, and we're going to kick off with Pamela Cordova. And then we're going to go right into our legislative report card. And then we're going to shift back to Women's History Month because we've got our second speaker stuck in a traffic jam coming back from Santa Fe. So without any further ado, I would love to introduce Pam Cordova as our director, Western Regional Director, National Federation of Democratic Women. Take it away, Pam.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I'm honored to be here tonight. So my name is Pam Cordova, and right now, currently, I am wearing two hats. I am the chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Valencia County, as well as the Western Regional Director for the National Federation of Democratic Women. And I reside here in Rio Communities, New Mexico, in the county of Valencia. My husband, Mike Melendez, he is the real veteran. I am the family member. So Michael served in the U.S. Air Force from 1977 to 1981. And then he went on to the New Mexico National Air Guard from 1982 to 1983 and finished his military career with the New Mexico Army National Guard from 1998 to 2001. His Air Force rank was E4 Sergeant, and his New Mexico National Guard rank was E4 Special Specialist. Thank you, Michael, for your service, and thank all the veterans here tonight for your service. It is greatly appreciated. I'm here tonight to talk to a little bit on Women's History Month, and I was asked to give the history of the National Federation of Democratic Women and how it came down to the history of the New Mexico Federation of Democratic Women. So basically, on October 6th of 1971, a woman named Rhea Woods from Tennessee called a meeting at the Capitol Hilton in Washington, D.C., where 27 women were present, 8 states were represented, and they met to discuss as to whether or not they wanted to organize and become a federation. At the end of the meeting, they decided to become a federation, and Ms. Woods was named the first temporary chairwoman of the Federation, and their very first annual meeting was in May of 1972 in Nashville, Tennessee. The early emphasis of the National Federation of Democratic Women was to prepare women to run for delegates to the Democratic National Committee Midterm Conference, where the charter of the Democratic Party of the United States would be adopted, and to pursue delegate seats to the National Convention. The goal was to have the National Federation named as the official women's organization of the party's charter. In December of 1974, the charter was adopted at the DNC's midterm conference in Kansas City, Missouri, and we were recognized as the official women's organization. The National Federation was accorded 3 seats on the DNC, and the president sits and was granted a seat on the executive committee of the DNC. So we're all in the 70s here. We're going to probably remain here in the 70s because in early 1977, the New Mexico Federation of Democratic Women, formerly known as the Democratic Women of New Mexico, was formed. And it just happened that later in 1977, an early Western Regional Director was traveling from Arizona to New Mexico and met with the women here in New Mexico. They were a little skittish. These are the stories I've been told by, the Marisa Dios and the Clara Padilla Apodaca's, all of those. So we're very skittish, but in the end, they decided that they would become a part of the National Federation of Democratic Women. And we've been due-paying state members ever since. And New Mexico has a little history with that. New Mexico actually hosted 2 national conventions in New Mexico, one in 1988 and one in 2010. Presently, the New Mexico Federation of Democratic Women has about 500 members and 11 counties that are organized. I was one of the founding members of the Valencia County Federation of Democratic Women back in 2011, where ironically enough, 27 women met and we organized. I was proud to serve 3 terms as president there of that organization. And 1 year we had an exceptional executive committee, and we were able to obtain 115 due paying members in the year of 2016. And that was the Hillary year. Okay, so right now, currently, they have about 60 members here in Valencia County. And then I went on to serve 2 terms for the New Mexico Federation of Democratic Women. And when I inherited the presidency, there was about 220 members throughout the state, and there were four counties that were organized. And like 2 months right before I took office, Doña Ana left. They said bye, and they left. So I was like, oh no. But at the end of the year, because I had an extraordinary executive committee, talented women, dedicated women, motivated women, our regional directors here in New Mexico for each congressional district helped the organization. And by the end of 2019, we had over 600 members and 12 of our counties were organized. And we were really proud of that. At the national level, I've had the opportunity to serve 2 terms. At the national level, they are 1-year terms. So within the last 2 years, I have been able to assist the state of Nevada, and they're the newest state in the national organization, the Nevada Federation of Democratic Women. We've had a couple of regional meetings in both the years that I was serving. So that's a basic history of Women's History Month. So many wonderful women have participated in this organization, strong women. And I just love to see how it morphed into where they only wanted to be delegates. And they were kind of like Shirley Chisholm, you know, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you take your folding chair. And the women were persistent, just like Senator Elizabeth Warren. They were persistent there. We were persistent in New Mexico. We also have 2 state central committee seats here, and our president is able to sit there on the board. We're a little different from a caucus. We're a federation, so we are governed by our bylaws at the national, state, and county levels. So if any of you women here from different counties are interested and you would like to organize in your county, if you're not already organized, I'm going to put my information in the chat right here, and you can contact me. I will direct you to your regional director in the congressional district where you live, and we can get organized. You only need 5 women, just 5, to get organized. If you prefer to become a member of the state, we offer that also. But that is your basic lesson from Ms. Cordova. I was a teacher, by the way, for Women's National History Month. Thank you so much for having me. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Pamela, thank you so much. I'm going to open it for questions. Please raise your hand, either using the little deal at the bottom of the Zoom thing or whatever to get our attention. But Pam, I want to just make a quick correction. You were talking about Mike as the veteran, as the really
Yes.
important person. And I'm not saying Mike's not important, but I know being a veteran, that your military family members, it's the only way we can do it. I mean, military family members are tremendously important. And without their sacrifice of moving around every few years and picking up new jobs and stuff, a lot of us would not have stayed in. And my husband just like brought me dinner here. So what a sweetheart. I love my family member. But
Okay, Claudia, now Mike's going to expect me to go take his dinner there.
well, Rick does kind of raise the bar wherever we go, I just got to
Mhm.
say. So does anyone have any questions for Pam Cordova about the Democratic Women Association, the Federation of Democratic Women. Shannon, sir, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment, and that is that men can also belong to the organization. I've been a member for 4 years. So don't leave us out, because we may not be women, but we certainly support the concepts and the ideas that the Federated Democratic Women of New Mexico and of Doña Ana County, which I'm a member of, do. So Pam, good to see you.
Good
Good
to
job.
see you too, Shannon. And he's very right. We have some really great men who are members. We allow everyone. I failed to mention that New Mexico made history at the national level this last year, because New Mexico is the first state in the United States of America to have a Laguna Pueblo Federation of Democratic Women. We are the first state to have a Native American women's group, and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, and Mike, I think you're a member too, aren't you?
Yes, I've been a member since 2012. So yeah, it's 10 years. I've been a member of the Valencia County Federation of Democratic Women, and it's been quite a ride. I got to know Pam in 2011, and she invited me to their first legislative session in Santa Fe in February of 2012, I believe, and it just took off from there. It's been very entertaining. At the cusp of the organizing that Pam does. It's a lot of work, and I see the effort she puts into it, and it pays off, and it has opened a lot of doors for me as a volunteer. So yeah, it's been
here in Doña Ana County, we now have over 100 members, by the way. So as of the end of last year. So it's really growing. We grew from things like 70 last year to another 30 at the end of the year here. Now we're over 100 members.
Fantastic. That's good growth.
Very good growth.
Yeah, other counties should be replicating that or racing you to a higher number. So Pam, thank you so much. You're really, you're a spectacular organizer. You're a pioneer. You persevere. And you also ran an extremely, extremely impressive race. What was your Senate district?
I ran for state Senate in District 30, which covers 4 counties. So I was very successful in the primary. I was one of the 5 women that challenged the 5 senators. Wow. Because they were not supporting women's rights. And 4 out of the 5 won the primary, and 4 of us beat incumbents. And then 2 out of the 4 were able to make it over to Santa Fe. I was not one of them. And I did lick my wounds for about 6 or 7 months. And then all of a sudden I find I'm the chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Valencia County, which, by the way, being the state director is a piece of cake compared to being this position.
So true.
I don't know what I would do without the Federation here. So if there's any party chairs, you really need to get those women on board. They are helpful.
If you weren't doing this, you'd be doing something else. You and I both ran very, very tough races in conservative areas. I spent about 3 months feeling sorry for myself and then jumped into the caucus, and there's no looking back. I absolutely love what I'm doing. It's a statewide organization, and we're just doing as much as we can and interfacing really well with the legislators. So Pam, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
Pam's information is in the chat, but we also put some information in the invitation that I sent out in a newsletter this morning about 8:15, so you can get in touch with her. So thanks, Pam. And before we jump into the legislative report card, I would just like to give Josh Jones, he was a candidate and he didn't raise his hand or I missed it. Josh is in a runoff. He's a veteran. He's an active member of the caucus. Josh, take a couple minutes and tell us about your race, please.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Claudia. I really appreciate it. And I don't want to take up too much time. And thank you for fitting me into your agenda here. And first of all, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much to the Veterans Caucus. You guys were so instrumental into the success that we had within our race. As Claudia mentioned, I am now in a runoff with the incumbent, Bob Tyler, out here in Rio Rancho in District 3. And, I have one or maybe two asks. Right now, we're, in a sprint to election on April 12th. And, we can really use all hands on deck. So anyone who is interested in phone banking or volunteering, I know you guys may not live in my district, but we would love to have you on the phones, because what we're trying to do is flood the area and flood the voters with information, letting them know that, one, there's an election, two, that I'm a candidate that's going to be for the people. I put all of my information in the chat box, so you can reach me via phone, email, or go to the website. Either one of those will work, and we would love to have you come out and really support, because we have a great chance to catch the incumbent sleep at the wheel. I'm not sure how much effort they're going to even put into this runoff race, and if they're not willing to put any effort into it at all, that gives us the opportunity to go out, really blitz the streets, canvas, and reach the voters. And then two, of course, we still have to raise money, and we still have to get donations to be able to do some of the things that we're trying to do in the runoff. So anything that anybody can donate would be greatly appreciated. And of course, my information is in the chat box. And again, I just want to say thank you so much to the caucus. Sue, she went out and she canvassed for me. Claudia was instrumental. Greg Seeley, he put together a lot of activities for us. So thank you so much to the caucus. Thank you everyone in advance for willing to get out here and help us win this race. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. One of the main missions that we have in this caucus is encouraging veterans and military family members to run for office, because representation matters. We have less than 7% representation in our legislature, but almost 11% of the state are veterans. So I really appreciate everyone who is running and everything that they're doing to support issues that are important to us. Sue, you've got your hand up, ma'am.
Yes, I'd like to say, first off, I've worked with Josh on the communications committee for well over a year. And he's the kind of guy that says what he's going to do and then does what he says. And that's what I tell people when I go out and canvass for him. I don't live in Rio Rancho, sadly, but I'm about 5 minutes south of it on the west side of Albuquerque. If anybody wants to help him, let me know. I'm happy to corral individuals who want to help him out. I tell you, he's a guy worth supporting, and this is so important in the community of Rio Rancho. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sue. All right. Well, let's get on to the legislative report card. That is the main focus of what we wanted to talk about tonight. And I'm going to tee it up for just a second and then introduce Rudy Martinez, who is the chair of our Committee for Veterans Advocacy. Every year for the last 2 years, we have had the Committee for Veterans Advocacy fully engaged during the session. And we've got a couple of spectacular hard workers, Dorothy Seaton and Joan Dickerson, who are not here tonight. They're having a wonderful vacation out of town because they literally for 30 days watched every single committee meeting that had one of our veterans or military families or active duty military oriented bills up. They listened to everything, they counted votes, and they organized a team of 9 people who provided public comment saying they're from the caucus, we support this, this is why. And I think we really helped push some of these bills over the edge. And I'd like to start out by thanking that group. Rick, can you join us? Bob Carroll, you're on board, aren't you?
He's here, Claudia.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so we had Greg Seeley, Bob Carroll, my husband Rick Moody, Penn Baker, and who are the other? Jim Williams, Chris Cedillo,
Yep.
and Dorothy
And
and Joan both, who all advocated for these bills, and it really made a huge difference. We're extremely organized. And after it, Dorothy and Joan put together the legislative report card. So I'm going to ask Ivan to pop that up, share screen, and I'd like to introduce Rudy Martinez, who is an Air Force veteran, served during Vietnam. He was a representative in House District 39 for 12 years, and I'm so happy to see that he is running again. And he is also the chair of our Committee for Veterans Advocacy. So Rudy, can you give us a little overview of what's going on here tonight, sir?
Thank you, Claudia. And I want to thank everyone that's on the call. And I apologize because my internet has been not working all day long, so I had to do it over the phone. But again, I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in the session and getting the needed information for our legislators that were carrying legislation that affected our veterans. It's been a great honor to serve as chair of the Committee for Veterans Advocacy, but really and truly honored to have been part of this process and certainly coming up with this very important piece of document, the report card. The report card is something that was talked about, and we need to thank Dorothy and Joan for being the drivers of that that very important piece of work that they did. It brought awareness, in my opinion, they brought awareness. This report card brought awareness for every legislator to see that they had somebody looking over their shoulder to make sure that they were supporting our veterans, not only our veterans, but our families, veteran families, whatever branch you served in, whether you were Army, National Guard, Air Force, National Guard, Coast Guard, whatever. It's very important that every one of these legislators understand that veterans are important to our communities across New Mexico. So, Claudia, if you'd like to take it from there.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much. You're right. I mean, this is really a lot of work and it's a team effort. So the whole team is doing a great job. Greg and I are going to kind of go back and forth on this, but what you see on the screen here, Legislative Report Card 2022, we did the same thing last year. So we ask legislators to sponsor bills, and Greg and a number of the team members worked with some of the legislators during the session to make sure that they had the information they needed. We brought some subject matter experts in, a couple of our key bills to educate people on them. So those legislators who sponsored legislation that we wanted, they are our heroes and we salute them. And we've got champions, and those are the legislators who voted 100% of the time to support legislation that benefits veterans and military family members. And then there are those who weren't there for us. They were AWOL. They didn't show up. They didn't vote more than 50% of the time to support us. So we're not a big fan of them, but we would like to work with everybody. And I sent this report card out to all 112 legislators, and we asked those who weren't there to support us to join with us next year, because we work bipartisanly. We just want to get stuff done to help our constituents and the wonderful veterans and their families across the state. So Ivan, I don't know if I know how to flip pages here, or if I could just ask you to go to number 2. So let's kick it off. The absolute number one legislation that we were really hoping would pass was a legislative assessment for America Serves. And Representatives Arnania, and Senator Pope, both veterans, co-sponsored this bill. It didn't pass, but it was funded fully, $100,000 by the junior money. So we hope that the governor's veto will be overturned, because this is the first step to get this wonderful overarching coordinating organization into the state. What they do during this assessment is they will be here for months, and they'll go out and they will assess the needs of the veterans that we have all over the state. And they're going to do a survey of all the resources and services. And they will work hand in hand with the VA and the Department of Veterans Services. They are not creating anything new. What I hear from veterans all the time is, my brother is transitioning. He's got 35 things he needs to do. Where do we go? How do we get our disability? This is a one-stop shop, and we really want to have this in New Mexico. It's extremely important. It's in 19 other sites, small states, big states, and some large cities. So we're really hoping that the funding goes through. And we are very happy that Senator Pope and Representative Sariñana pushed so hard and worked so hard to get this bill as far as it went. Let's go on to page 3. Greg, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, you bet, Claudia. Happy to help with this one. So this HB 132 and HB 172 were essentially some of the provisions from 172 were included with 132, which was the final bill that passed. And here's what's so important about this. A few years ago, the Department of Defense, Congress passed rules that supported the Department of Defense's recommendations that interest on any payday loans or other types of credit loans for active duty military members be limited to a maximum of 36%. And so here in New Mexico, we had a limit that was far higher than that. And so we advocated strongly this last year to make our state one, which reflects that same amount, so that, for us, as far as military members go, folks from our National Guard, Reserve, who may still be serving but not be serving on active duty, that this rule applies whether they are in or out of uniform. And the great news is that this now applies to everyone here across the state. And it's a great example of veterans leading the way, utilizing some of those resources that are out there, right? Folks talk about how much money we throw at our military here in America. And this caucus is trying to show ways that we can really utilize that funding and those level of resources and the leadership that we have out there, the strong political support we have for veteran and military families, all of those resources to do good things for everybody that help all of our communities, right? And so this was an important priority in which veterans led the way. It came from a military-led effort, and we got it done. And this was a huge one. Back to you, Claudia.
Thanks so much, Greg. It's exactly right. We went from 175% cap to 36, which is high enough. And it's just fabulous that it passed. So next we had House Bill 191. And this kind of followed on from a bill that we had last year, where we were trying to, so like I was active duty for 29 years. I moved 19 times. Every time I moved, my husband moved, and he would have to get a different job wherever we were. There are a number of military families where the spouse is a working professional, be it a realtor, a beautician, a teacher, any kind of profession. And it takes a long time to get your license transferred to move into New Mexico. And it was so hard before that some military folks would say, I'm not going to be stationed there because I need my husband's income or my wife's income. So the bill that passed last year and these two bills is helping make this a more active duty friendly state for our military families. So we're very happy for the whole gang that helped out on HB 191 and for Senator Bobby Gonzalez for what he did for spouse license reciprocity. Over to you, Greg.
You bet. Thank you, Claudia. And one point to make on this exact issue that's really important. Some folks may remember when Space Command was up for consideration. The military, when it considers basing big missions, which mean many millions of dollars in investment and, many, many jobs for communities like Albuquerque, they look at this particular issue as being a major factor in whether or not they're going to put military or defense-related missions in your community. So this is a huge one for the whole state of New Mexico. If we go to the next slide, Ivan. HJR1, Public Assistance for Household Services. This bill was important because what it did is it helped to match some of what the gaps were for certain parts of our state. There were veterans and, of course, are the rest of New Mexicans who live outside of certain areas, who have a gap in essential services that can cover what essentially can be built in their community. So the anti-donation clause within the New Mexico Constitution created some barriers where state level money, we're talking about sometimes federal money that's even passing through the state level, created a bar on what state funding could be applied to these type of projects. And so what this bill did was to help open up those projects for funding that both is, state funded just straight from the state of New Mexico general fund, but also funding that the state receives in block grants from the federal government, which the anti-donation clause caused issues with in the past.
And I would, sorry, fooling around my video. And I would really like to call out Senator Ortiz-Pino, because he had a companion bill in the Senate that he was running that basically covered the same thing, but you got to make some choices on which bill you're going to go with. So Senator, we really appreciate the heavy lift that you did on that. And I'll take the next slide, Ivan. And I'll actually ask Greg, who is a little more familiar with these bills, to talk about this. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to work on this one. So about 10 years ago, one of our champions who's here with us today, Rudy Martinez, worked hard to get past a veterans small business procurement preference for the state of New Mexico. Most states across the United States have this preference. So if you have a veteran-owned small business, just like with the federal government, under federal government contracting rules, you can get a veteran preference, just as you would want to have a preference for our disadvantaged businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. And so this bill was passed with a 10-year sunset on it, because one of the key issues at the time was to make sure that the regulations as they got passed were the right regulations. So this required the state legislature to come back and review this legislation, make it permanent if it was the right fit. What happened is, unfortunately, the sunset bill came and snuck up on us faster than the legislature could get to it. So this was set to end. There would be no veteran small business preference for procurement in the state had this bill not passed, and that would be here in about 4 months. So thankfully, the legislation that Rudy Martinez and team fought so hard to get past 10 years ago is going to be continued on forward, going forward. Additionally, these are I want to just address the other two real quick. The other two bills are really important because SB 45 and SB 28 are kind of, let me get SB 45 in just a second. SB 28 is important. A veteran's hiring preference, this is for private businesses. So what happened is there is a quirk of the Title VII law on the federal policy side that actually requires states to proactively state that under their employment laws in the state in which the business is operating in, they are allowed to institute a veteran hiring preference. Now, this is completely optional for small businesses, large businesses, privately owned companies, whether or not they choose to implement this program. However, there is a liability issue should they implement a program like this without the coverage for the federal law. So what it requires is New Mexico to catch up with 37 other states that have already done this, to just proactively say, yes, Title VII applies here, and private companies can institute a veterans hiring preference. So that one did not make it through. We are very much going to put it on our next year priority list. SB 45, Veteran Business and Contractor Procurement. See, what happened is the bill that we previously talked about, SB 39, accomplished the goals of this one. So this bill was actually tabled in preference for SB 39. Reason being, SB 39 included some strong protections, both for Native communities, Native-owned small businesses, but also Native veteran-owned small businesses. So SB 39 included some more provisions, and 45 was tabled because of that. Back to you, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Greg. That's great. So it seems like we had nothing but success. I mean, this is really impressive with the number of bills that were passed, but we've got a couple more, so I want to cover them. Senate Bill 134 is the Housing Trust Fund. And I know I worked in the Senate for this session. I know that Senator Nancy Rodriguez really did a ton of work on this, and I'm sure that Representative Small did as well. But this authorizes the allocation 2.5% of the severance bonding capacity to fund this New Mexico Housing Trust Fund, which will help veterans and a number of other constituents in our state. And we're really happy that it passed. Next slide, please. Greg, over to you.
Yes, you bet, Claudia. So this bill also builds on some work that, again, our champion legislator who is the chair of our Committee for Veterans Advocacy led the way to get this program established. Rudy Martinez and other legislators worked hard to establish a disabled veteran transportation program here in the state of New Mexico. What this means is that our one really actual big regional medical center the VA has in this state has to cover the whole state, some of southern Colorado, all the way into parts of Arizona. There is a huge radius for which veterans have to travel in order to get at many types of care, not just advanced care, but even some basic care from the VA. And so what this does is it creates a free transportation program for those veterans to be able to get to appointments at the VA here in Albuquerque and then get back home, so that it's not something many of them who may not be driving themselves can have a safe way to get to their appointments. Really critical program that Rudy and his fellow legislators built. This program has needed expansion to other parts of the state. They were able to build some counties into the transportation. There were many counties that had not yet gotten to. And so this money that's going to help fund this program will help in expansion of that program. And I just want to check real quick, given this is his baby that he worked to create. Rudy, did I miss anything there? Good to go, Rudy. It seems like you're giving me a thumbs up. I know you're having a little bit of internet issues, brother. So I'll take your thumbs up as good to go on to the next one.
Thank you, Greg.
Go ahead.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Let's go ahead to the next slide then.
And I do want to make a comment. So that was partially funded, not completely funded, and again with junior money. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Senator Ortiz-Pino has to say about any hope we have for actually getting this junior money, because it really makes a huge difference. I live out in a rural area. We talk to people who live even further, and this getting into the VA is a really big deal. So up next, we've got the House Bill 76, military retirement income. Greg, do you want to talk to these? I think you're a little better versed on them than I am.
Yeah, you bet. I'm happy to do it. I'll be honest with you folks. So for many years, year after year after year, one of the most reliable things you could count on out of a legislative session here in New Mexico has been to try to do some kind of tax relief for military pensions. We are one of a handful of states. In fact, we're one of the only states left in the United States that doesn't have at least some sort of relief for the retirement of military members who have served our country and retired to that state. So in some ways, that actually creates a lot of issues for us in attracting military-owned small businesses, military-trained workforce, and military transitioning service members who carry training, education, classification, clearance, number of things that make veterans so wonderful to hire. This makes it difficult for us to attract those folks because our state taxes their retirement income, and yet every single state around us, Colorado, Arizona, Texas, all of them do not. And so what we had to do was there has been an effort to just exempt military retirements from taxing, which is the case in Texas, Colorado, and a few other states. However, the hit that would put on our state revenues was balked at by both our Legislative Finance Committee and members of leadership who have to watch our state's bottom line. What happened is Harold Pope, this is his idea, a really great idea, and he worked with other legislators to put it all together into a package that could pass. This thing barely made it, folks. I'm telling you right now, having a veteran who could literally walk down from desk to desk to explain to each of them why this is important, how it matters, and how this particular change to the retirement tax relief was critical. This would not have passed without Harold Pope whipping votes right there in the Senate and in the House. He had to explain this to folks, and this is historic that we got this through. So this is something. I was just out in Washington, D.C. I was talking to a lot of military associated groups, and this is something I was bragging on for the state of New Mexico, because we need to get the word out about this, that we're actually doing this work here. And it was led by veterans in our state legislature to get this done. So what it does is it's the first $30,000 of your pension, retirement pension income, get tax relief under this bill, under HB 76. What that means is that the way Senator Pope would put it to you is that folks who are retired colonels, retired generals, who may not necessarily need this relief as bad as some other families, they'll see relief under this, but this really helps the folks who are retired enlisted or maybe had to retire early because of medical reasons, like yours truly, who do not get a pension of the size of the folks who are senior leaders who are retiring on pensions that are outside of that scope. So what this does is it really targets help at the folks who probably need it the most. In addition, these are also the folks who probably retired at or even sometimes below 20 years. So these folks are still in the workforce. They're still producing taxes for our state. And that was a critical component in making it acceptable for everybody to vote to pass this in. So this is truly historic legislation, a very big deal. The phase period, let me explain how the phase period works. So essentially, the income tax deduction on uniformed servicemen income tax deduction applies to their income tax, which is different than necessarily just their retirement income, right? So essentially phased in over 3 years, not to exceed $50,000 in the third year. So this legislation is going to have to be addressed again. Essentially, what that does is it creates a sunset for this particular provision. It allows the LFC to study it. It allows members to see what the effect of this is on our overall revenues. But then at a future point, they can vote to make this permanent or even expand it down the road. So this is something that's going to continue to be a priority for us in legislative sessions down the road, because we cannot let the site go off of this and let it sunset on us. It's going to take constant advocacy to get it through all the way. I'll stop right there.
No, that's perfect, Greg. And I want to point out that, the fiscal impact reports that they do up at the Roundhouse typically look at lost income. They don't necessarily consider opportunities that are lost. And as Greg is saying, when you attract more military who may have been a little junior when they got out or retired, they're still working and they've got money coming in from their pension, and they've got a work ethic, they've got skill sets, and they know how to work hard. And could we use a few more of those in New Mexico right now? Call for a service provider and see how long it takes and see the quality of work that you get. So there's just so much opportunity if we could bring more military into the state. So I will go on to House Bill 112, Substance Use Disorder Programs and Clinics. A number of veterans who see combat or experience some kind of a trauma often suffer from PTSD. And sometimes if they're stationed here and they get out here, they're transitioning and then they're out in the street. And this is so important to us as it is for anyone else who is trying to help people who are experiencing homelessness or difficulties transitioning or need some assistance. I mean, we know that this is a dire situation in the state. So unfortunately, it did not pass, but it looks like 1.7 million is going into the renovation of a facility in San Miguel. But I think everybody here knows that we need so much more money and services for mental health. Next. Okay, so let's start out with Liz Stefanik, Senator Liz Stefanik, Senate Bill 63, homeless shelter support. Same type of thing with Senator Rodriguez, Senate Bill 96, and Representative Joy Garrett's bill. This is all to try to help people who are looking for shelter, who need to move into homes, need a little bit of assistance, get their feet on the ground, and then also to prevent crime. Greg, do you have anything else you'd like to say on these three? I mean, they absolutely apply to veterans, but so many other segments of our population.
One of the most successful transition programs of this type in our state is actually the largest veteran serving nonprofit in our state. It's the Veterans Integration Center right here in Albuquerque. And the Veterans Integration Center has been trying to expand its services to other parts of the state for years, to put folks in other counties where they can get assistance from a social worker who can help provide them with services and or work on their case with them, or can even arrange transportation for them to come up here to Albuquerque and stay in-house at their transition facility here in Albuquerque and get services here in Albuquerque where there's a much more comprehensive program. So one of the most successful transition programs we have in the state is the Veterans Integration Center. That is an organization, among others, that will benefit from funding that's being put towards these efforts. And what that does is it does help us with an issue that according to a 2018 study, I haven't seen new numbers come out on this yet, but according to a 2018 study, New Mexico had the second highest rate, because population-wise, the second highest rate of homeless veterans in the United States. So that means more homeless veterans per population than anywhere else in the country, right here in New Mexico. So our need is great, and this is a really important bit of funding, and we're hoping to see this continue down the road. This is going to remain a very big priority for us. We think that, working and helping homeless veterans will also work to help to build programs that will help all unhoused populations who want services and may need other services. So I'll stop right there.
And again, this is it looks like it's going to be partially funded with junior money. So back to hoping that gets turned around. Greg, can you talk to this?
Yes, this is an interesting one. Public transportation infrastructure. So this bill unfortunately did not make it through. Okay, what this Public-Private Partnership Act would have done, and why it's important in the veteran and military families context, is it would have allowed these transportation programs we talked a little bit more about earlier, right? Excuse me, no, this is broadband. I apologize. This is really critical to expanding broadband in rural areas of our state where, as I mentioned before, sometimes funding issues with the state's anti-donation clause could get in the way. This actually helps to fix language that does create limitations for creating public-private partnerships in order to expand broadband in different areas of the state. You might think of utilizing certain federal money like Reconnect or other federal money for that. But again, if you have issues with creating under the state regulations, I'll go ahead and stop right there without getting too far into the weeds on this one. What it will do is hopefully help us expand broadband and bring really promising projects to parts of our state that need it, including from Native-owned corporations that are looking to do broadband expansion in our state. So I will stop right there and let you know that this continues to be a priority for us going forward.
And I don't think anyone can argue that we need better broadband. I see people in the city struggling with it, people on these Zoom meetings, but certainly living out here in the rural areas, it is touch and go. Sometimes we're driving to places to try to get a connection to get on board, and this will be very helpful. So we've got House Joint Resolution number 6, veteran property tax exemption. This did not pass, but we started working on that. I think this is about the 10th year of that, Rudy or Greg, you can tell me, but I think I remember Representative Alcone said that he's been working this forever, and it would really make a difference because we want to give a property tax exemption to disabled veterans so that they can stay in their homes. You see what's going on with the cost of housing. And as the value of the homes increases, your property taxes increase, but your military retirement or disability does not. So we wanted to have a tax exemption that would match the level of disability of veterans. So say, for example, somebody who is 100% disabled, which typically means they're not able to work, would have 100% disability and then down to 90, 80, 76 and down to help everybody. And then the House Joint Resolution number 7, Armed Forces and Widow Property Taxes along the same lines, and it would help widows and widowers as well.
Absolutely,
Next.
that's the case, Claudia. And here's one thing to understand about the $10,000 piece. Right now, it's $4,000, but it has not been updated in more than 20 years. So that is a tax exemption which has not been tied to inflation, and it reflects housing prices from 20 plus years ago, which we all know is not necessarily going to cut it these days. The other thing is that the other bill only allows veterans who are 100% disabled to be able to
Yeah.
claim that full property tax exemption. We feel like, making it reflect their percentage, meaning if they have a 50% disability as rated by the VA, they'd be able to claim 50% deduction on their property taxes is more than fair, and we're going to continue to fight for it.
Exactly. I think the one change that was made, it used to be that it was 4,000 per household with a veteran in it. And like we've got Commissioner Shannon Reynolds on board. He and his wife are both veterans. Now it's 4,000 for each veteran. So they get an $8,000 deduction, but it's not 8,000 off your taxes. It's just 8,000 off the value of your property. So that kind of wraps it up, going through the bills individually. What we're showing here is kind of a summary sheet. Bills that passed, bills that were partially funded, and the ones that died. Next slide, please.
And Madam Chair, for clarification, it's 8,000 off of the assessed value.
What did I say? Did I miss?
You said property value, but it is the assessed property value. So if the
Thank
property
you.
say
The assessed
100,000,
value, so it's only the 1/3, and then it's minus the 8,000. So it's a huge difference between if your value is 100,000, 33 divided by 3, it's 33,000 minus 8,000, which is a huge difference than 100,000 minus 8,000. So it is a bit good benefit for veterans at the current time, but we do need to update it to consumer price index.
And tie it to there, so we don't have to keep readdressing it in these extremely short sessions that we have in the state. Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Well put.
All right, so Senate legislation, the caucus follows, that passed. You saw them. We've got one memorial and 2 bills. We've talked about those. Next slide, please, Ivan. And then this is what died. It's a summary. Next. So here is our list of representatives who were champions. They voted 100% of the time to support the bills that we were championing and advocating for. So you can see it's a really long list, and you can also see what party affiliation each of these people have. So the Republican Party, which is the party that wraps itself in the flag and talks about veterans all the time, for some reason, they weren't voting in favor of these bills, and we're very disappointed. But we're really impressed with the people who did vote all the time, and we want to continue to work with them. Next. And the senators. Again, look at that party affiliation. So isn't it wonderful to be members of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus of the Democratic Party of New Mexico that is getting stuff done for veterans and military families, not just wrapping themselves in the flags and talking about it, but getting it done. I think this is just wonderful. This list is bigger than what we had last year, and I hope next year's is even bigger. I'd like to have every single senator on here. Next. And then the representatives who did not vote 100% of the time, but were still above the 70% mark. Next. Same with the senators. Voted more than 70%, but not all the time. Next. And this is not the list that you want to be on. This is not a gold star on your report card. Look at all of the people here. Look at the party affiliation. And they didn't vote at least 70% of the time to support us. And some of these percentages are really low, like 50% of the time. And these weren't all just veterans bills. I mean, you can see that we were watching for bills that would affect a lot of people, but they didn't even vote for them. Next. And the senators. Again, look at the party affiliation. So you tell me which party is the party of veterans and military families. Next. This is our mission, and you can see it on our website. I think we articulate it in most of our meetings and most of the things that we do. Next. And these are the members of the caucus that are also elected officials. And we salute all of you. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Next. So, Ivan, thank you so much. We can take down the PowerPoint. Everybody, if you'd like to see any more information on this, you go to our website. It's on the home page in a pop-up. You can read through the whole thing again. And all the legislators receive this. I would like to start out. Shannon, you've got your hand up. Is this from before or?
No, actually, I wanted to answer, make sure I saw what I saw on that list of the AWOL members. Did you leave the Democrats out of that list or on the AWOL members, or is that just only Republicans that ate that list?
That's the way it worked out. That's the way it worked out.
Shannon.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't, you didn't do it on purpose. That's all. So, okay.
No.
So basically it was the Republicans and no Democrats fell to that list. That's okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And I'd challenge anybody that would want to disagree with it. Go ahead and check our numbers. It's
Okay.
absolutely the way it should go.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. I saw what I saw because it went by so quickly. I didn't get to look at all of them, but thank you.
But again, it is on our website, so please take a look. And we had the same thing last year, Shannon. The numbers were, the numbers of people in different categories were different, but only the Republicans made that AWOL list last year. And some of them have made it for 2 years in a row. So we got a special place in our hearts for them. Heather, you got your hand up, ma'am.
I do. I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm really excited that Representative Stansberry has co-sponsored the Able Age Adjustment Act, and she did it on February 18th. And I want to thank her for that. And, it's going to, if it passes this year, hopefully it'll help an estimated 1 million veterans around the country have access to this program, raising the age of eligibility from 26 to 46. And so I don't want to get too much into what the program does unless you guys have the time, but I am just so excited that we have another of our congressional delegation who has co-sponsored this this bill because it's important work. And so thank you to her people and to the representative, and I'm happy to impart that today.
I really appreciate that. It's always wonderful to give a shout out to those who are working with us and who support these wonderful programs. And I would like to ask Senator Ortiz Epino to please give us a little insight, anything you'd like to say about the session, and then certainly the veto and where we go from here, sir.
Thank you, Claudia, and thanks to all of you for the work you did during the session. Oh, I see Senator Pope has joined us too. Good to see you, Senator. I mean, basically, the session, for a 30-day session, accomplished a great deal. I think the heartburn is over some friction that developed between the House and Senate so their bills didn't get through ours and our body, and we had some that didn't make it off of the floor of the House, and so there was a little bit of friction. But basically, the successes far or outnumbered the things that didn't get through. I wanted to say something though about the what's called House Bill 2 Junior. It's actually Senate Bill 48, and it's the bill that had some appropriations for projects, not for capital. The governor signed the capital outlay bill. She made a few vetoes in there, but the one that's currently a controversy is over the bill that would fund some programs, and several of those were for veterans, as you mentioned as we went through this. I know Senator Pope has a couple. I had a couple that weren't specifically for veterans, but all in all, the governor vetoed the entire thing. It was $25 million of projects for Senate, 25 million of projects for the House, and all of those were vetoed. It was so upsetting that immediately both houses started planning how to override the veto. That would be a real black eye for the governor. And we would only do that as a very last resort. She is working with leadership to try to resolve the situation. She had some objections to some of the projects. We're talking to her about that, trying to get something worked out. We believe that there will be passage of the House Bill 2 Junior, essentially in the same format that it passed before, maybe with some wording changes, but it'll probably be done through a special session that will also take up the issue of some kind of relief for the extreme increase in gas prices that everybody is facing these days. So those two would be the only items on the agenda of a special session, possibly as early as the first week of April.
That's excellent news. So I've got a question on that House Bill 2. Does the governor have the ability to do line item changes where she could have lined out things that she didn't agree with, yet pass the rest of it?
Yes, actually, any appropriations bill, she has the authority to do a line item veto on. And this was an appropriation bill. So I think the reason there was so much upset is that there were a lot of good things that weren't getting funded as a result of that. And I think she realized that she was trying to send a message. She didn't like the process, but the consequences are so dire for so many. You know, the understanding was in the past that we could add things to House Bill 2, the regular appropriations bill. This year, the message from our Finance Committee and from the House Appropriations Committee was in special requests that you all have for a limited amount of money. In the Senate, we each got 600,000. In the House, they each got 350,000. So, you know, it wasn't an inordinate amount of money in an $8.5 billion budget, but it was important stuff for our district. And so when she vetoed the entire thing, that did raise some hackles and caused some heartburn. And I mean, I think the issue can be resolved much more amicably than overriding her veto. But if some reason the negotiation breaks down, I think both bodies are prepared to override the veto.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. It seems, I think there are an awful lot of processes that aren't set up ideally. And it seems like it is extremely difficult and there is a tremendous lack of political will to change the institutions and the systems and the processes. But it seems like that would be a thing that you would do during the interim committee to make those structural changes and then deal with the legislation as it comes up. Just my 2 cents as an outsider. Is the senator frozen or is that my screen?
It appears he's frozen at the moment, Claudia. I wanted to see if do you want me to jump into next year's priorities, or are we going to do that on a different day?
No, we'll do that right now. And we've probably got about 5 minutes for it. So we'll wrap up with the legislative report card. Thanks, everybody. Greg, please, what's on tap? And you're on mute, Greg.
Sorry, gang. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So here we have our 2022 key personnel and readiness issues for supporting service members and families. We work with what is called the Defense State Liaison Officer for our region. The DoD has an office that is set up specifically to work with states in order to work on legislation and issues that are important to veteran and military families, specifically service members and their families, to make sure that states aren't passing laws that are going to hurt military readiness in our country. We want our folks to know that their families are safe and taken care of when they get deployed to go overseas. Like when I left Afghanistan, knowing my family was going to be looked after was such an important thing. So we work with the DSLO. We have a new one here in New Mexico. Her name is Kelly Mae Douglas. She's outstanding. In fact, she jumped in to offer testimony during the legislative session on the spouse license portability bill, the HB 193. So her testimony, as you can imagine, was probably pretty persuasive to legislators who are hearing from an actual representative of the Department of Defense. So priorities that are continuing forward for us, as you see, enhanced military spouse portability. According to the DSLO, our current law meets their baseline. This bill that they passed this year, that was before this year, 191 is making further improvements on this. So we are technically green. If you go to Military One Source state policy, you can see all of this information. You can look at a national map and see how New Mexico stacks up to other states in the priorities for taking care of military families. So we're green on this issue. We're going to continue to work on it to make sure that we're taking care of military spouses who move here to New Mexico. This issue is actually sort of a multi-tiered thing, though, because what there is there's occupational license access. So not just transferring your license from one state to another, but let's say you've moved to New Mexico and you need to get a license. You want to finish your certificate program. What does that access look like for you to continue your education and finish up that certificate, that professional degree that you need? So right now, is according to the purple is from Kelly, most New Mexico boards do not meet this objective. Implementation of HB 91 may result in improvement. Now, I can tell you right now from talking to her, it will result in some improvement here. But here's the thing, we're going to have to continue to work on this. It's very much just small tweaks to our language, allowing our tax and rev office to be able to quickly implement license applications for military spouses. Some of this is the information on our state website. Some of these things are as simple as that. And so we're going to get this taken care of. We're going to keep working on it. Some of that does not require legislation. Now, licensing compacts are interstate licensing compacts where multiple states have banded together to say what's true for our licensing requirements in New Mexico is true in Arizona, is true in Colorado, and on and on. We so far have only joined with one of 8 possible licensing compacts that exist out there. We're reviewing the other 7 very closely. So far, it looks like I think most of them are going to be good for New Mexico. Now, here's why licensing can be a sticky issue on the political side. Just to quickly address this issue, why have we not fixed all of this already? Why is this a year after year, we pass another bill and another bill? The issue partly is that, for one thing, there is a strong lobby that wants to protect the status quo for licensing for professional certifications. As simple as that. Professional associations, some of which we very much support and love to partner with here in the Veterans Caucus, some out there do have an interest in keeping the fees they receive from charging folks to issue them a certificate and for reviewing their records to issue a certificate. That said, we don't think it's fair to do to military family members who have to move with their family member in order to continue to serve alongside their family. So we're going to continue to work on fixing that. Next up, Purple Stars program. This bill was passed last year in 2021. Thank you, Senator Harold Pope and all of his co-sponsors. Purple Star program is a voluntary program which schools can implement in order to make transitions into a new school better for military kids. You know, for those of you who grew up military brats, and I know there's many on this call, it can be really hard to pick up, go across the country, move to a new school, some of which have to do 6, 7, 8 schools in just K through 12. That is really hard on kids. And what this does is it helps to appoint an actual person at the school who's in charge of Purple Star. That person finds out when a military child is transferring into their school, and they have a whole set of practices, programs that they've found have been really helpful, both for the child's education transition, but also for their mental and emotional health in their transition, to help them establish a new life in a new school. So this is a really beneficial program for kids, both on their education and just for making those kids feel comfortable in their new school. And we really love it. We want to see schools across the state implement it. And that's what we're working on right now, is proactive outreach to schools to make it as easy and accessible as possible for them to implement it. Advanced enrollment, this is also something passed last year. Again, that was a Senator Pope lead. We had multiple members co-sponsor and help push that through. So joint effort across the board. Democrats pushed that through. A couple of notable ones, Katie Duhigg worked really hard on this. We had Saya Hemphill worked really hard on this. We had a lot of really great members push hard for advanced enrollment. What that does is it allows a student who's moving in to a new state to be enrolled in that school, their records transfer faster. I'll go ahead and wrap this up real quick. Open enrollment flexibility is new. That is a new priority for them. We're going to be working on that as we go into this next school year to try and make sure that we're not passing a backdoor school choice program. What we're going to be working on is making sure that it works for military students, because sometimes where the parent has to live isn't always lining up with what the school that's right for the student. Think of magnet schools, think of other things like that, right? In-state tuition continuity. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If in-state tuition for military family members, you're going to college, you're almost done with your degree, you have to move to a new state, all of a sudden you can't qualify for in-state tuition. Makes sense. Child abuse identification and reporting. This is met. We've done that. Here in New Mexico, we passed that bill years ago. Thank you, New Mexico legislature. Concurrent jurisdiction. This one here is actually on hold, but will be a priority down the road. I don't want to get in the weeds on this. This one essentially means that law enforcement, both inside the gate and outside the gate, can work together. Ask the Question campaign is designed to help make referrals easier and to help folks understand when military family members are in crisis. It's a really good program. It's DoD funded. Again, we spend so much money on our military. Let's make some of those programs work for our communities and use those programs and the practices and the resources that are there to serve all of us. It shouldn't just be military members who get to the full weight and breadth of resources for the United States. And I'll stop right there. Thank you all.
Greg, thank you so much. Now, does everyone see why he is the strategic director of our Committee for Veterans Advocacy? Greg, spectacular job. You're just wonderful. I so appreciate it. So I'd like to, just before I introduce Pat Gaston, I would like to let people know, if you like what we're doing, if you think you want to be a part of this team, reach out to us. Go to our website. get in touch. We always need more people to help out with CVA. And on that note, let me turn it over to a fellow women veteran, Pat Gaston, who's going to talk to us about the Women Veterans of New Mexico organization, of which she is president. Pat, over to you, ma'am.
Pat, you'll need to unmute.
Oh, cool. All right. So I was talking, sorry. I'm just saying, sorry, I'm walking and talking. I just got home from Santa Fe. There was 2 major wrecks en route, so I apologize for walking and talking. Yes, as she said, my name is Pat Gaston, and Claudia, thank you so much for letting me speak to your caucus. So let me start off with why we were formed. We were formed in 2006 by the Secretary of Department of Veteran Services. It was John Garcia, for those who know John Garcia. He had a meeting for women veterans. He had a conference, and he's like, we need to see why women are not applying for benefits at the same rate that our male veterans are. I mean, it was like really low. I think it was maybe 8% or something like that. So we had a conference, 200 women veterans showed up, and it was so much more than he thought was going to show up. And it was a great conference. They had all sorts of meetings on the different benefits that were available statewide and nationally. And a lot of programs that the VA had that a lot of women didn't know that they had the ability to access. And what I'd like to say too is one of the women that we had the funeral for today, unfortunately, she was Navy. She served in Vietnam. She was on the Mercy ship, did 2 tours in Vietnam. And it wasn't till she met the women veterans in Mexico that she discovered she was actually a veteran. When she was released from duty, they just released her. Didn't tell her anything about her benefits, didn't say you're a veteran. They're just like, okay, you're gone. And so it wasn't until she discovered our organization 46 years later that she discovered she was a veteran. And one of the things she said was she was so thankful that she found us and she found a community where she belonged. And I think that's one of the biggest things is our organization is about letting women know that they do have benefits, that they are a veteran, that they're not invisible. And the other part for me is that they have a place that they can come together and communicate or congregate and talk to other female vets. When I got in, the percentage was only 6% female. Now it's going up to over 10, which is still a pretty small percentage of the military. So there's not a lot of female veterans. And so there's not a lot of people that we can relate to. Yes, we served with our male counterparts, but our service was not equal to the males in some respects, as far as you've got 90% of the unit that you look like. Well, we were, less than 10% that look like us. So the experiences were definitely different. And so having an organization that has somebody you can look at and go, hey, I know she's been through what I've been through. And we can start off with a conversation, erasing 3 chapters worth of talk, because we know we've been through the same things and some of the same experiences. There's over 17,000 female vets in the state of New Mexico. I think they're still listing it as 16. And when we first started in 2006, it was listed as 16,000. So I believe their numbers is definitely wrong, unless we had as many people die as came in, which I don't think is the case. So I think their number is low. So there's around 17,000 female veterans in the state of New Mexico. What I'd like this group to know is why we're here. I've had some male veterans come up to me and say, well, we're all veterans. Why is there a male group? Why is there a female group? And I kind of said it before, we had different experiences. It's kind of like being in football huddle. We can't go into the locker room, so we're not part of all of that. we're part of some of it, but not all of it. So our experiences are definitely different, and what we can share and relate to are definitely different. Regardless if we stood next to each other in the same unit, did the same job, our experience within that organization is still different. So this gives us a place where we can actually commune. I'm very happy that the Veteran Caucus supports all women veterans, all vets, males, everybody. I'm really proud of that. And I kind of press to my organization as much as I can, because we're a non-political group and we have to remain that way. But I do let them know what this group does, because I think it's so important, especially all the bills. I love the breakdown of the bills. We got a lot accomplished. It looks like we have some work to do, but it's well on its way. So I love this caucus, and as much as I can present it to my organization, I'm definitely going to do that. So I definitely appreciate Claudia, and I appreciate everybody in the caucus. Communication team is awesome. So thank you guys. And I just wanted to keep it short and see if anybody had any questions.
And Pat, before we go to questions, I just want to thank you so much. Lieutenant Colonel Gaston, you want to talk about women being a minority. Imagine the numbers of African-American women in the military serving in the officer ranks. Talk about the top 1%. That was Pat. And you I put up with plenty, but you got more. So shipmate, we are warriors together in this, but we have to take care of everybody else. And even though we're a partisan organization, we work across the board with anyone because we want to get stuff done. We are not politicians. We are problem solvers, leaders, mentors, and we want to fix problems for our fellow shipmates and veterans. So thank you so much for what you did and are doing. And thank you for teaching me how to do MailChimp. Pat taught me how to write a newsletter, and I didn't want to do it. I couldn't stand it, but she taught me, and I've learned. So thank you so much. So be very happy to take anyone's questions now. Just raise your hand or put something in the chat, and Sandy, please read it.
Claudia. She did such a great job.
Yeah, I was going to say, doing a great job.
Thank you, Richard. It's good seeing you. How are you?
Good. This is my first time on, but I'm going to text you. I want to work on a couple of issues that Greg Seeley presented. Okay, the licensing compact and the open enrollment issue with schools. Okay, so I need to sign off. So anyway, great job. Love this venue. Okay.
Thank you so much, and please come back. We're having our all hands meeting on the 26th of March, and we've got 2 wonderful Congress women. 2 of the 3 are wonderful, and that's the only 2 we asked for. We got Melanie Stansberry and Tressa Ledger Fernandez. So we hope to see you again. But thanks so much, Richard. Appreciate it. Anyone else have any questions?
I'll put out one other thing. If
Yes,
there's no questions, I'll put out one other thing that I left out. One of the things we do is help women that are starting over, basically. A lot of women had issues as well as the men, and came back struggling, let's say, and they took turns in their life that kind of left them in bad spots, and now they're trying to get back on the road. So one of our things our organization does is help women start over. We work with the VIC, we work with the VA, and we want you, what I'd like for you to know is that we provide things that the VA cannot provide and the VIC cannot provide, because we don't have any governmental assistance. All our money is donated. So we help women immediately with getting into not apartments, but hotels overnight until they can get into the VIC programs. We help them with immediate need of food. We had one woman who had twins and needed diapers badly, so we fixed her up with that. We are available to assist any women veteran who needs assistance, and we're not picky on the need. As long as there's a need, we're there. We've given scholarships for people who needed to finish training to get their certification so they could go back and be productive. all sorts of things. One woman who wanted to be a firefighter, so we paid for her training. So we've done all sorts of things that women who are trying to help themselves, we're going to get them to the next step if we can. So if you know any female veterans out there, go to our website. I think we have a great website. We can't compete with you guys, but I think we have a pretty good website. So check our website out. We have all sorts of resources there. And if you can provide a resource, I'd love to hear from you.
And we put your website in our chat, and
Ah,
you have a
thank you.
wonderful website, and we would love to have a story with some links and information about this Help Women Start Over. So you know where that newsletter resides, my dear friend. So please throw it in there. And I know you're not being attacked by that dog because you're smiling, so I'm glad.
This is my new puppy, and she is all teeth, and she loves my hair. So I just picked her up, so I'm fighting with her, trying to play with my hair and hold the phone at the same time. So.
All right. Well, I've got two short things and then we need to sign off. So one thing, I want to plug our all hands meeting. This is the first time that the caucus has had it in our 7 years of existence. It's going to be on Zoom at noon on Saturday, the 26th of March. And you can go to our website and just jump on the Zoom. Like I said, we got Melanie Stansberry, Tressa Leja Fernandez, both speaking. We got door prizes. We're going to have all kinds of stuff going on. We would love to have you there. And the other thing is the VA just came out with a very disturbing report, and they are looking to close 4 VA contract clinics in northern New Mexico. This is bad news. We've got one VA hospital, like Greg said, in this entire state, the 5th largest state in the union. 11% of our population is VA. They can't drive from Raton or Espanola or Farmington down to Albuquerque that easily. And these clinics are a vital role. So we're going to be getting all over this. Stay tuned, check our website, read that newsletter, and let us know if you want to pitch in to help us see how we can turn this around, because this just won't do. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I love our speakers. They did a great job, great information, and we really appreciate all your support. And before we go, Senator Harold Popes got his hand up. Okay, buddy.
Madam Chair, I was just going to complain on that report card, since all that help I got from Representative Garcia and Anderson, that, I should get credit on the military retirement bill passing, because it did become part of the tax bill. We can put credit on that. I'm whining, but just let you know, being funny.
No, here. We'll fix that. We'll get on that and fix that, Harold.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were here for it. I was telling people about you whipping votes on that bill, so.
Yeah, you were getting a lot of kudos as I text you to draw your attention.
Yeah, and I apologize for not being here right now. A lot of people like me right now. I guess that's a good thing, and it pushes away the haters, what's going on. But I just want to end, and I'm sorry, I don't want to take too much time. I know folks have other things to do. I was really frustrated. It's a 30-day session. It's tough to get stuff done, but we did get stuff done. I was upset about our voting rights bill, the Green Amendment, but overall, we did a lot of good things for 30 days in a 30-day session. Senator Ortiz-Pino talked about what we're dealing right now with the junior bill. I don't want to get into it too much, but I will say that we're going to resolve that. The bottom line is that money needs to go to our communities, and that's my goal. I'm not, trying to play politics. I'm not trying to, what do we do to get back to the governor? It's just, how do we restore this money? And I believe we have a path to do that. Because as far as I'm concerned, I want her to remain our governor, because I think people need to realize that if that doesn't happen, what we achieved in this 30-day session won't happen for 4 years. We will just not have the votes to override the legislation. And I guarantee you the stuff that we're doing now would not pass with the Republican governor. You've seen that on the report card with Republicans just in our legislature. So I think folks need to look at the long term and the long game of things that we do. And just know that we're working on this, and we're going to bring that money back.
I'm so glad to hear that. And thank you for putting it in that context, because as you can imagine, my first reaction was not positive. and I haven't had a positive reaction, but I have faith that the legislators are going to fix this. But you're exactly right. I've heard it's really hell on wheels working with the Republican governor. They talk vets and military, but they are AWOL. And we don't need 4 years in the darkness. So thanks so much.
Well, you joked earlier about you're just a person on the outside, but you got a little taste of somewhat being on the inside working up there, and you've seen how it can be, and you see how frustrating it can be, and that's why I'm not known as a quiet person in the caucus. I do let people know where I'm at and why are we doing this. But I just want to say I appreciate all that you all do. Without the phone calls, without sending this information out, without whipping votes yourselves to make sure that my colleagues in the Senate and in the House know that these are coming down the pipe, it's so helpful. Because all I have to do is go to the folks that would not probably be on board and get them going. So I appreciate all the work you do. So thank you.
We're a good team, aren't we? All right, everyone, thanks so much. Great to see everybody. Go get that beer and let's celebrate St. Patty's Day tomorrow night. And we hope to see you on the 26th at noon on Zoom. Be there, be
All right.
square. Good
See
night,
ya.
folks. Thanks.
Claudia.
Thanks. Bye.